Haumitakuyapi. Welcome everyone. In this story that I am about to share with you, there are several scenes which contain sensitive information. I strongly advise you to please not attempt to perform or mimic these incidents in any way, as I cannot be held responsible for your actions after hearing this story. Long time ago, there were 4 brothers who lived in a teepee, and they lived way out in the wilderness where there was a nice stream and there was some mountains and lots of trees. And they were all good hunters and they were living okay. But when they would bring back their animals after they hunted, they were not very good cooks. And they didn't know how to make clothes out of the animal skins that they would keep from the animals that they hunted. Now, back then, our ancestors, when they went for a hunt, they would always say a prayer for the animals. And they would give something of themselves. And they would make an apology. So after they were done hunting, they would do another ceremony and do the same thing. They would thank the animal nations, and they would always say that they would only take what they need, and they would always give something back. In Lakota culture, you don't just take, you give something back. You maintain a balance. So this is how they hunted. Well, one day, a young woman came to their teepee. She was standing outside their door, and the guys saw her there. They greeted her, and they asked her who she was, and they asked her if she was hungry. They said they just came back from hunting, and they were getting ready to have their meal, but they told her, we're not too good cooks, so we're warning you. And she said, no problem. I can do that for you, she said. And so she prepared their meal as they waited, and boy, it smelled good. And she saw the animal skins hanging inside the teepee. She asked them what they were going to do with them. And they said they didn't know because they don't know how to make clothes or anything. And she said that she could help them to do that. And they were happy. And it was a very nice evening. And they were talking and telling stories, and she was telling where she came from, that she comes from another village. And the guys asked her why she was walking around by herself. And she said that she had a dream where there were some brothers that needed help and that she wanted to assist them. And this is why she was wandering around looking to see if the dream was predicting something about the future. And so the boys were really in awe of what she had to say. So they talked, and then it was getting late into the night. So they asked her if she would like to spend the night, and they said she could stay inside the teepee and they would sleep outside for this night. So she was okay. They wanted to show her respect and give her privacy. So they finished up their meal, and the boys went outside and put their bedrolls out and were talking among themselves, really in quiet tones and quiet voices. And they were like, what do you think? Should we ask her to be our sister? And then maybe she'll live with us and we can help each other. And they thought, okay, that's that's a cool idea. So they were all excited and they had trouble falling asleep. So the next morning came, they were getting up and she was already making something for them to eat. And they smelled it and it was like, this smells good. And so she came out of the teepee and she invited them in. She said, I made something to eat. So they went in and they were all happy. And then the oldest brother asked her. He said to her, we would like for you to be our sister. And if you accept, we will make a teepee for you beside ours. And this will be your home. And if this is okay with you. And she accepted. She was really happy. So that day, 2 of the brothers went out hunting and the other 2 went and cut some trees and were able to make her a teepee. While they were doing that, she was preparing some of these animal skins and getting them ready to make a teepee covering. So it didn't take too long. And so after a while, everything was finished. The teepee was set up and she put the teepee covering on. And she had her home. It was placed beside the brothers' teepee. And so they lived like this. One day, 2 of them will go hunting and the other 2 would stay home, watch out for her and help her. She would help the brothers. And then when the hunters came home, she would help the brothers process the animal. And then she would cook for them, and it was very, very good. And then winter was coming, so they decided to make preparations, which means they had to hunt more animals and dry the meat so they could eat soup during the winter months. And she knew where to find vegetables, wild fruits, and then she and her brothers would process those and dry them, and they kept their dried foods in the earth. This was their natural refrigerator. So, well, one day the oldest brother went out to go hunting, and the other 3 stayed with their sister, and they did other things to get ready for the winter that was coming. When the day was over, that oldest brother did not return. So they were getting a little concerned. The next morning, he still didn't show up. So the next oldest brother went out to go look for the first one, the oldest brother. So he was out looking, and the day came to an end. Nobody came home. The following morning, still no one arrived. So the second brother went out to look for the other 2 brothers, and he said, I will find them, I will bring them home, so don't worry. Well, the day ended and he didn't come back either. And the next morning, still no one returned. So the youngest brother said to his sister, I will go out and find our brothers, and we will come home, and everything will be okay. She didn't want him to go because she was scared he might not come back either. So she pleaded with him, please don't go because we don't know what's going on. And the brother did his best to reassure her that everything will be okay. So he went out, and she was very nervous. The night came, he didn't come home. She couldn't sleep that night. And when the following morning came, still no one showed up. So she started to get really, really sad, and she was crying, and she was saying to herself that maybe the 4 brothers were killed or something bad happened to them. and it really pained her. And she made a decision that she don't want to live anymore. So she climbed a high hill which had a lot of rocks on the top. And when she got there, she thought to herself that she would eat as much rocks as she could until she died. So she put a rock in her mouth, swallowed it, and then something happened to her body. She felt a pain, and so she hunched over and fell on the ground. She was holding her stomach, and then the pain went a little bit lower. Her body in that area started to grow. And then she realized that she's pregnant. And so she continued to lay there because she couldn't stand up. And her body just got bigger and bigger and bigger really fast. And then it got so bad. The pain was so strong. And then she realized she had to push it out. It was trying to come out. So she pushed and pushed and pushed. And a baby came out. And the baby was made of stone. Was a stone boy. And she got the baby and she was happy because it's her baby. It didn't matter to her that it was a stone boy because it's her baby, it's her child. After she gained some strength back, she went back down the hill, went back to her teepee, and as she was walking back to the teepee, this baby was growing. And by the time they got to the teepee, the baby was walking. Everything was going fast with this child. And then they went inside the teepee as it was getting to be evening time, and the baby was getting bigger. It was starting to talk. It was really happening fast. And she ate something, and the baby didn't seem to need anything to eat. It was a stone boy. And so he lay down with his mother to sleep. And when she woke up, he was a young man. And she was happy. And the stone boy seemed to already know how to hunt. He seemed like he already knew things. So he would go out hunting for his mother because he didn't need anything to eat. He's a stone boy. And so they lived like that, and she was happy. And then one time he came back early. He was successful in his hunt, and he came back early, and he saw his mother crying. And when she realized he was there, she really wiped away her tears, and she tried to act normal, and she was smiling because she was happy to see him. But he was curious. Why was his mother crying? So he asked her, and she didn't want to say anything. She said, no, everything is okay. And then he said, well, I feel it's not. And so she didn't want to say anything for a long time, but eventually she told him what happened to his uncles. So he was thinking, okay, Mom, I'm going to go find them. And then she said, no, please don't go. And he was saying, don't worry, nothing's going to happen to me. I will find them and I will bring them home. And she was really scared. She didn't want to let him go because maybe he's going to disappear too. But he kept reassuring her. He said, I promise you, I will bring them home. And then he wanted to show her something that she didn't know. And he said that he travels great distances during the daytime. And the way he does it is that he's able to transform into a meadowlark. Now, in Lakota culture, a meadowlark is a very highly esteemed bird. I mean, all creation is sacred, but the meadowlark birds they're really special, yeah, because when it's springtime, they're the first ones to come back from the south. So when people hear them, they're really happy because they know it's not going to snow anymore. They know the winter is over. So it's really nice to hear the songs of the meadowlark. So when the stone boy showed his mother that he could transform into a meadowlark and that he would fly around to see where his uncles were, this made her happy. This gave her hope because of what the meadowlark means to Lakota people. So she felt a little bit better. And so he transformed into a meadowlark and he flew away. So he flew to many places, many teepees, and he didn't see anybody. Then one day, he saw a teepee out in the middle of nowhere. And he saw an old woman outside looking for tree branches and things like that. And then she went inside her teepee. She closed the teepee door and there were strange sounds coming from inside the teepee. He got his interest, so he was thinking, what's going on in there? And so he transformed back into a meadowlark, and he flew up to the teepee poles to take a look on the inside. And he saw 4 things hanging on teepee poles, and he's looking at it really closely, and he realized they're human, but they're really flat. And he realized that these were his uncles, and that this grandmother was getting ready to put them in this pot to make soup and then eat them. Then he transformed back into the stone boy, and he fell on her, smashing her, and she was dead. Immediately he grabbed his 4 uncles and he made a special lodge. Then he made a fire and he heated up some rocks in the fire. Then he brought one of his uncles in, and then he sang some songs, said some prayers, and suddenly this uncle came back to life. His body filled out again so he was normal. And he was saying, "Where am I? What happened?" So the stone boy told his uncle what happened. And the uncle was really, really shocked. And so after that, stone boy said, "Metake oyasing." Everything's related. All my relations. Stone boy opened the door to this lodge, and he went out, and the uncle followed him. And stone boy told the uncle, "Look, here are your brothers." And so the uncle was shocked. And stone boy said, "Let's take one of your brothers in, and we'll bring him back too." So they took the next uncle inside, and stone boy did the same thing. And this guy came back to life. His body filled out again, and he said the same thing. "What am I doing here? How did I get here? Who are you?" So stone boy said, "Uncle, I'm glad you're awake." And he told him what happened. And then he says, "Mitako ayasin," and stone boy takes him out of the lodge to show him what's going on, that there's still 2 more that are still flat. And of course, this guy is really shocked too, yeah, to see what happened. So then stone boy takes the next one in and does the same thing. And the same discussion happens. This uncle says, "What am I doing here? What happened?" And Stone Boy explains again what happened. And then he says, "Mitako ayasing." Then they leave the lodge. And then Stone Boy takes the last uncle in and does the same thing. And the same thing happens, 4 times. All together. And so after this session ends, he says, "Mitako ayasing." Then they go out. And now the brothers are all together. They're all back to life. And they're happy, of course, but they're also really concerned because it's been a few days since they left their sister and they're worried about her. And Stone Boy says, "Don't worry, she's okay. And I'm going to take you back there now." So he starts walking and they follow him. So they travel a great distance, and several days they're traveling. And then early one morning, before the brothers wake up, Stone Boy transforms back into a meadowlark and flies ahead to see how his mother is doing. And he goes there, and she's sitting outside the teepee. She's sad. She's crying. So he starts singing, as a meadowlark. He starts singing. He's sitting on top of her teepee. And so when she hears the song, she looks and she gets happy. "My son, you've returned." And then he flies to the ground, transforms back into Stone Boy, and he says, "Yes, I'm back, and your brothers are on the way, so prepare for them. I'm going to fly back to them. They're not that far away, and then we will be coming very soon." And she's really, really happy. And so she gets a meal ready for them. She's so anxious. So then he tells his mother, "I will see you this afternoon." So he turns back into a meadowlark, and then he flies back, and his uncles are just waking up, and he lands a distance away and transforms back into Stone Boy. And then he says to his uncles, "It's not that far away now. We're almost there." So they continue their journey, and by the afternoon, they can see the teepees in the distance. And they start walking faster, because they really, really miss their sister. So they are walking as fast as they can, and then when she sees them coming, she runs out and is crying happy tears and hugs everybody, and they hug her, and she's really, really happy. They have a very, very nice reunion, and she has a feast ready for them, and she says to Stone Boy, "Thank you, my son. Thank you for bringing my brothers back to me. Thank you for bringing your uncles back home." And the 4 brothers look at Stone Boy, and they're like, "Wow, we have a nephew." A real nephew. And they're really, really happy. And they're very thankful that he came after them, that he was able to rescue them and was able to bring back life inside of them. And so they lived a very nice life after this. And this story is explaining how we got the Inipi ceremony, or what some people incorrectly call a sweat lodge ceremony. It's more than just to go in and sweat, That's why it's not really a nice name, sweat lodge. And when people today, they'll say, "Let's go for a sweat." And it's really not good to call it that. You really should call it Inipi, because this has to do with rejuvenation. It has to do with life, to live again, to breathe. Ni in the word Inipi means breathe. And the lodge itself is like Initi. This is the lodge where you are going to be like almost reborn. And that's what it feels like when you participate in an Inipi ceremony, when it's over and you come out, you do feel really light. Sometimes it feels like when you're walking, like your feet are not even touching the ground. Yeah, it feels like you're gliding. it's really cool. But the ceremony is a cleansing ceremony, and sometimes people are healed in ceremonies like this. And this ceremony does not require a medicine man or a holy man or anybody like that. A person can do this on their own. This ceremony serves many purposes, and it's called an ikje ceremony. That means a man can do this ceremony by himself for personal reasons, for personal things. The only thing that's important is that there are 4 sessions. And this is one of the stories that explains how we got the Inipi ceremony. Now, there are other stories too. And even the Stone Boy story that I just told, sometimes there's variations on that story too. So if you know a Stone Boy story that is a little bit different than what I said, it's cool. Yeah, don't get into, oh, this is the correct version. Because then you're thinking dogmatic thinking. That's not our way. There's always going to be different ways to accomplish the same thing because, like I said, we are not dogmatic people. So there are other stories that explain how we got the Inipi ceremony, but I like this one because it's special. Yeah, it's very unique, and to visualize what this Stone Boy looked like. Yeah, and the things that he did, and the ability to transform into a meadowlark bird, which has a very special place in Lakota people's hearts. It's really nice to hear them sing. And meadowlarks come back in around April. This signifies our new year, yeah? When our New Year's Day is. It's always a different day. It depends on when these birds show up. It's like signaling like a rebirth too, just like the Inipi ceremony symbolizes a rebirth as well. So do you see the connection there? It's very cool, and it's a sacred connection. So this is the story of Inyan Hoksila, Stone Boy. To learn more about Lakota spirituality, I have written a book called Wichochan Otechike. This book also includes Lakota star knowledge information. All the videos that I make, which are about Lakota spirituality, Lakota star knowledge, and cultural information, are based on this book. This book costs 99 American dollars. And this price includes the shipping cost as well as a tracking number. And to learn more about Lakota language, I have written a Lakota language book called Shonte Etan Owoglake, Speaking from the Heart. And all my Lakota language videos are based on this book. This book cost 119 American dollars, and this price includes the shipping cost as well as a tracking number. I also teach online, and I give spiritual consultations as well. The price for these sessions are 35 American dollars an hour. If you are interested in any of my services and products, you can send payment via PayPal to my email address, which is hehaka7@yahoo.com. That's HEHAKA the number 7@yahoo.com. And also include your shipping address and your email address when you send your payment. Lila Pilamayelo. Thank you very much.